Alright, hello and welcome guys to the next episode of our F123 career mode here in Season 2, Episode 4 in Japan. And,
We're going to be logging some extra data during this session. Nothing you need to worry about, but as we have some new parts on the car, we'll just confirm moving to spec.
I wanted to let you guys know the end of the last episode there in Australia was, in fact, that heat unit component. And I was really, yeah, so it was just one of those things. But, I wanted to take a look. Qualifying, rain, 83. Qualifying. Race, 12% of rain at the race. So it's going to be a wet qualifying, looks like. It was what it seems. And, a dry race. So, a mixed race. So a dry into a wet race. So we may raise the downforce just a little bit, or the right height, depending on how we feel. Because I don't believe we get any rain in practice. We may get rain towards the end. No, it doesn't look like it. But yeah, we're gonna be heading right into the weekend here in Japan for week 4. And let's get right to it. Alright, so a unexpected start to qualifying. I knew there was going to be rain, I wasn't sure. But yeah, so it looks like the first 10 minutes we're going to be running intermediates and then go to soft. So we'll see what we can do about coming in later on the soft tires. Alright, so here we are, first time out in the rain. And you have our 3 times softs, 129, mediums, 130, hards, 132. A 2-second gap, like 1.5 to 2-second gap between the hards and mediums. But it's not really gonna matter right now because we're in the rain. And our first run through Q1, trying to stay on the driest part of the track, and we get a 142.1 provisional P5. Our first run, not really feeling comfortable about that. Pushed back to P9 towards the end of qualifying 1. And 141.8 from sides as we're coming over the curb. And yeah, take a little bit of this inside of that. You can see the snap of oversteer trying to stay in that rain, but it's going to be good enough for 5th through Q1, provisional 5th. And we're going to go ahead a little bit less rain through Q2, sitting back in P14 as we're trying to set our time. 9 minutes to go in qualifying. Still see that we're dealing with the sitting water. And the only run that we're going to get through qualifying here is going to be that 137.7. Alright, so we took a gamble and I forgot to check the weather because it seemed like it was still going to be wet enough for the intermediates. But we're going to be lucking out here. Why is it only going to 14? I have no idea. But yeah, so we're out in Q2 for P14. We stayed on the intermediates. We're the only people. I don't know why it's not going down to 15 unless we had a retirement. But yeah, so Lewis Hamilton, provisional P1 with a 1-2 on the softs. But we're going to get to the grid and see what we can do after that mistake. And see if the rain can help us out here, because we were running pretty good, as you guys had seen through the first part of Q2. So let's get right to the race.
No fewer than 12 world champions have been crowned at Suzuka, but who will be tasting glory today at the checkered flag? We're approaching lights out, and we can't wait for the Japanese Grand Prix. A lap of this historic racetrack covers 3.6 miles. It's the only time during the season that we race on a figure-of-8 circuit. And the drivers can expect some intense G-forces through the 18 corners on offer here as they experience some of the highest average apex speeds on the Formula One calendar. Keep an eye out for overtakes into the final chicane. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. And Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Verstappen, Perez, Norris, Gasly, Tsunoda, Joe, Jackson, Johnson, Russell, Bottas, Ocon, Oscar Piastri, Mick Schumacher, Magnussen, Mayer, Hulkenberg and Logan Sargent. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. It's just about time to go down to the track for the beginning of the race, but before we do, Anthony Davidson, what types of strategy do you think we can expect for today's event?
Well, there's a lot that both the driver and the team have to keep in mind when going into a race. The tyres, fuel, energy recovery systems, the list goes on and on. But I think the key to today's victory will come down to the pit stop strategy. Come in too soon, and you might find yourself needing more than one stop. Too late, and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by spending longer on worn tyres.
All right, so here we are at the start of the race, P11. So 3 penalties that bumped us up, and rain towards the end of the race. So we're going to go ahead and go with the soft and mediums and see where we can end up with that. So let's get right to the race.
The formation lap gets underway and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out. As the cars make their way back to the starting grid to form up and get ready for lights out, let's hope the race ahead today is a thrilling one that will go down as a memorable Grand Prix in the history books.
All right, so we have our possible race strategies there, and lap 9, swapping over to the mediums. After our soft tires, we're going to be next to the AlphaTauri, the Connor Sport car. We're still having issues with our team name changer. That's why I'm still having issues with the names, because they're still showing as AlphaTauri. But we're feeling a lot better after that qualifying in the rain, because it's going to be a dry track. So starting P11 after penalties, right next to Jackson, and we're off to a good start. And that's, I believe, Joe tries to move on the outside. The Alpine really slow. The Alpine and Pierre Gasly really slow. Practically coming through a 4 wide, we back out, give up those positions to these S's, because I know we have had challenges with these S's. And basically, as soon as we get in the groove, we can do a lot better on these S's. So we drop back to P10 after a 4 wide situation into turn 1. It wasn't really a good angle to see that, but there was. I should have had the onboard at that point. But we're slotting in behind Joe Grandieu a little bit over the curb. Luckily, no track limits there. We're coming through sector 2. And brake late on the inside, try to make position up against Joe, but we still have to give way to that position. As the 2 Ferraris leading, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton for the top 3. And our teammate Mick Schumacher back there in P15 as we're coming around this long double left-hander. And have to try to follow this line as best as possible throughout the race as we come through downhill. And then about half second behind Joe Grandieu for the first lap. So we're doing pretty good with pace. And this last chicane took us a little bit to get used to during practice, especially with the rain through qualifying. So trying to get as good as launch as we can. And sitting in P10, gain of 1 position throughout the first part of the race. Moving on to lap 4 now, sector 2. Finally able to make a move on Joe Grandieu. I thought about going on the inside, but same situation from the first lap. We wanted to wait, get up into his gearbox around the corner. We're going to use the double left-hander to our advantage and see what we can do. So we hit the 100-meter mark. And yeah, get as close as we can. A little bit of contact there. And I had to back off just enough to save him without getting any damage to my vehicle or any penalties. So we do regain that grip after dropping back. And we have a yellow flag there. It's going to be the McLaren of Lando Norris. It's going to be the first incident so far in this race. We're 4 laps in. So we're going to go ahead and swap over to the respective of Lando Norris here. Going to be on board coming out of that double left-hander. And you can't really hear it, but see how the front end of the car kicks up a little bit. He slows down, starts kicking up. You see, I believe that was a Mercedes. He's slow here. And then the Connor Sport, and then there we go. And here's going to be a third-person perspective from it. And actually, it's going to turn out to be a puncture on the right rear tire. So a puncture for Lando Norris, early puncture. And that's going to be a pain for him. As you can see, he's back there in P19. Lap 6 now. Still behind Joe Granu, still trying to make a move after that yellow flag. We couldn't really overtake him through that last section. As Oscar Piastri is still trying to catch up to us. We have the momentum. We have the inside. We're not going to give in. We're going to make that position up against Joe Granu for P8. Now we have P7. That's going to be Aiden Jackson in the Connor Sport. And as far as I've seen, none that I remember at the time of doing this commentary over the race, P7 is his highest position as of yet throughout the race. Moving on to P9, and we're finally able to catch up to him. So our goal right now is basically try to pass him before we come into the pits, before we swap over to, I believe, the mediums. You can see how much overcast has come in a span of 2 laps, how much difference there is in the sky. Because we gain that momentum, we have the soft tires, we're trying to make a move, take as much curve as we can, but we're gonna have to wait till the last chicane to make a dive to the inside. And my guess was that he was gonna come in right behind us, but we weren't expecting how things were gonna go, because he does end up coming in behind us. And look how close he is. He's not even 2/10 behind us. And I had to make sure that we hit this pretty spot on. That way we didn't lose any time. I could have hit a little bit better. We're coming out of the mediums, and as we're coming out of the pits, you see he's even closer behind us now. And the time frame doesn't look like much, but Aiden Jackson so close behind us, and you can see his teammate Callie Mayer. I thought it was going to be a sandwich between myself and the Connor Sports, but we have the Williams driver of Sargent, not Jackson. Jackson's behind us. Sargent, we had to give way to him on the inside. We could have went a little bit more, but I didn't want to cause any damage. Moving on to lap 10, we're trying to make up our position against Logan Sargent, as Callie Mayer is up there in P11. And yeah, we little nudge like, hey, a reminder, I'm still here. As we push him out of the way a little bit. No penalty for the contact, or no warning for the contact at all. And so we make up into P12 coming around this double left-hander. And lap 10, so we're over halfway. We missed the breaking point for this double left-hander. So yeah, Logan Sargent still about 7/10, 8/10 back behind us as we try to catch up to Callie Mayer. And Callie Mayer ends up coming in this lap anyway, so that long left-hander tried to close the gap. It's 12.5 seconds between Callie Mayer and our teammate of Mick Schumacher. How big of a gap it is between our pit stops as she goes in. Jackson on a new set of mediums behind us stays in. There's Sargent went in as well. We're moving out of the pits, and we managed to pass Piastri, Russell, Bottas, Schumacher. And lap 11, we're running back up into P7, and we got ahead of Piastri, so we're running pretty good here through lap 11, the start of lap 11, and I'm a lot more confident on these mediums and through these S's as we take a little bit of curb, but it's not too bad compared to last year's game. Moving on, later on in lap 11, we're going to be on board with Piastri. That's going to be through that double left-hander there, and we missed our braking point on that second left-hander, and we're coming back onto the track, and I'm coming back onto the track, and I don't even feel the contact from Piastri, but his front end just gets torn apart. He loses his front wing, and he's swapping over to a third-person perspective here as we're on me, and you can see how we come off the track. And then as we're coming back on the track, parts just go everywhere. That was a Mercedes of, I believe, George Russell that slammed into the back of Piastri. That's going to pull us to a red flag. So we're going to go back to the perspective of George Russell, the Mercedes behind the Connor Sport of Aiden Jackson, coming through that double left-hander. And yeah, just another perspective, another onboard. You can see us coming onto the track, see all those parts flying, and Russell just nowhere to go. Could have followed, taken a little bit of grass with him, but... All right, so we're here for the red flag stop. I tried to get back on the track. I didn't feel any contact from, I believe that was Oscar.
Okay. Actually a free stop,
But,
so let's think very carefully about our strategy for the rest of this race.
I honestly, I am not sure. At the point of recording this, I don't know. But we'll definitely take a look back at it when we do the editing. And then I will be looking at the race director here and seeing what happened. Like what it's saying that happened. But looks like the rest of the race, 13 and 19 on the intermediate. So we'll have some rain for the remainder of the race. So let's go see if we can have a decent finish. All right, so back to the 5 red lights, and this time we're in the rain, and we have a 5-second time penalty for this. So we're back up in P7. Tsunoda off to a decent start behind Perez, and then we get caught up behind Carlos Sainz. So we're moving up to P5, and this 5-second time penalty is really going to hurt us because is basically an unsafe return to the track, and we were rewarded a 5-second time penalty for the incident causing 2 drivers to DNF, to Piastri and Russell on the bottom there, as we slot into P6 behind Carlos Sainz through the S's. Lap 14 now, so we have like 5 laps to go. You can see we're struggling to get these wet tires warm enough to get enough traction through these turns in the rain. And yeah, so Tsunoda about 3/10 back, 4/10 back, and about 5 seconds back between us. We had to brake a little bit earlier on that hairpin. We managed to have enough heat to get a position against Carlos Sainz on this first lap after a red flag. So we really have to think about what we can do here in these last few laps with that 5-second time penalty. Missing our braking point for that double left-hander. No track limit warning there, as I basically knew I needed to get as many positions as I could before the end of the race for that 5-second time penalty in order to stay in the points. So the goal here was to try to get onto the podium, see if I can split the Red Bulls. But as we're already to the end of lap 14, I just had to do as much as I could and hoped for the gaps between the other drivers. So moving on to lap 15, you can see the Red Bull trying to make a move on Leclerc, Verstappen, and Leclerc fighting for the lead. As we brake early, a little bit earlier into turn 1 because we're not so used to the rain. A little bit more rain than we had in qualifying. Probably about the same as Q1. As we try to make a move on Hamilton, we make a move on the outside, keep that pace. We're now up in a P4 behind Perez, Verstappen, and Leclerc. Leclerc still holding on to the lead, as we're still hoping for the best. Missing our braking point again through that double left-hander. And yeah, that's going to be our second warning for track limits there. As we can regain onto the track. Moving on to lap 17, we're trying to make a move on Perez. But it's not going to be Perez making a mistake. It's going to be Leclerc. I don't know if there was contact or if he spun. You can see Leclerc going out wide there, almost coming back into contact with Perez. And we basically get our grips back and wait for an opportunity to pass Leclerc as we're lap 17. So 2.5 laps to go practically. Coming through the S's, we're not really on the line, but we're trying to get as much grip as we can to pass Leclerc. We're coming through the end of Sector 1, start of Sector 2. And you can see we're still trying to fight the grip levels and the standing water on the ground. We make that right-hander. This right-hander was a pain during practice. But yeah, we managed to use this hairpin to our advantage. Not really the same move that we used on previous drivers, but we did get enough grip out of the exit of it to make a move on the outside against Leclerc, taking P3, lap 17, and we're going to be defending P3 for that 5-second time penalty. And you can see that incident from Leclerc, it's not really going to help our case for that penalty, but yeah, so we're going to still be able to stay in the points just barely for the end of the race.
Another action-packed Japanese Grand Prix comes to an end, and a magnificent drive to take the win today. And talk to me. What do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalize on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. Let's have a look then at the driver's standings. Some amazing talent out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Often my go-to would be a driver who's managed to pull off an especially impressive feat during the race. However, in this instance, I was more impressed by Max Verstappen's solid, clean driving throughout the event.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. The lead at the top comes down after a strong weekend from the challenging pack. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend for them as they fight their way towards the top. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action, and I can't wait to see what's next.
All right, so an eventful race. Knowing that we have the higher or the lower downforce setup for the dry in the rain, we had a little bit of power behind us in the rain, as the rain kind of felt like qualifying one. So we tried to use that to our advantage. We got up to P3. It was a podium, but according to that 5-second penalty that we had the contact with Oscar Piastri. At this point, I look back at it, and yeah, it was just me trying to get back on track, and I wasn't aware of the speed that he was coming up behind me. So very unfortunate for Oscar Piastri, and that 5-second penalty really hurt me, but that's what needed to be done. But our teammate Mick Schumacher finally getting points on the board with P10 or P9, so he gets 2 points, and I get another point on the board for me. So yeah, so driver standings: Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, and then Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, Aston.